It's 3 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon. Thanks for tuning in to Cannabis Legalization News, where we explain marijuana laws so you can change them. Today, we're joined by Aaron Barfield from Black Excellence in Cannabis out of Seattle. We're going to be talking about Washington and Seattle's cannabis scene. So let's just get right into it. Hey, Aaron, Miggy, and Tom. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Hello.
Happy Sunday. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Cannabis Legalization News. We're closing in on 10,000 subscribers, and so the poll that we have currently being asked to our viewers is, what do you want us to do for our 10,000th show? So drop it in the comments down there what you want us to do for our 10,000th show. Currently leading is giveaway stuff, and so we have Doob Tubes still. Like, remember back in the day when the cannabis industry was a traveling trove of trade shows?
Like in real time events. Like, Aaron, did you ever go to the events?
Which one? The trade shows?
Yeah, like CannaCon and whatnot.
Yeah, I've been to a few. I went to some huge ones down in Vegas that
it'll always be like the NJ BizCon or something. But Aaron, thanks for coming on the show. Why don't you introduce yourself to the people that are tuning in?
Aaron Barfield from Black Excellence in Cannabis. Long time medical cannabis provider and patient, as well as an activist to fighting for inclusion for African Americans in the regulated cannabis industry.
So during medical time, Tom, I always blow Tom's mind when I talk about medical time, like this great beyond, reminiscing of when it was a capitalist market and we would, hang out. But how many Black owners were there at the time? I remember seeing your documentary.
We don't know specifically how many there were, but we estimate in Washington, there was probably about 20% of the market was African American owned, and that the estimates, that there was approximately 2,000 to 3,000 dispensaries in the state of Washington at the height of medical.
How many are there now?
Just medical dispensaries or
dispensaries,
recreational stores?
Either, just dispensaries.
Well, they pretty much shut down all the medical dispensaries, and you're required to have be licensed with the Liquor and Cannabis Board here in Washington. So basically, you have to be licensed recreationally. So we went from, almost 3,000 access points at the height of medical to currently there's only a little over 500 stores for the whole state now.
Yeah, but that's still 500 stores. We have like 100 in Illinois. And Illinois is like 13 million people, not like 5 or 6. It's crazy. But that's what happened to the market then? Because in other states, when a medical provider or a medical state becomes adult use, for example, in Arizona, they're just saying, hey, if a license holder right now, the first round you get. Same with Illinois. It's like, hey, if you're a medical license holder, first round you get. Was that not what happened in Washington?
No, not at all. They basically just held a lottery that was, anything.
Was it really a lottery, though? Was it really?
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
They claimed that there was a lottery, and that it was done, without taking any demographics or anything into account. But in Washington, coincidentally, the way it worked out, that by the vast majority of people who were able to win this lottery and obtain these licenses were white men.
I wonder if there was like a stoner statistician out there who can give us the numbers and probability of like the small percentage of Black owners, minority owned, versus for a lottery, you would think they put your number in a ball, right? Shake it up, pull it out. The odds are you're going to have at least a good mix.
Well, actually, Tom, I wanted to ask you real quick. So what year did Illinois pass their recreational?
Recreational was passed in May of 2019, became effective first of the year this year. And then they fairly orderly fashioned did their applications, at least to get the application. And then as they were taking the submissions of the application, that's when the coronavirus came in and really scotched the whole thing. But it more than scotched the whole thing, it exposed the prejudices and the duplicity and how it almost appears rigged by the scorer. And so it just seemed like it wasn't very, very open to opportunities, so much to the tune that 900 teams, unique teams applied. Only 21 purportedly got a perfect score.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you said you guys just passed this last year, right?
That's right.
And you already have over 100 stores opened up.
Well, we had 55 medical dispensaries, and they all got grandfathered +1. Mm-hmm. And so if they all they haven't done it all yet, our +1 in our little hometown of Peoria, Illinois, just opened up a couple months ago. So a lot of the +1s have come out, and then they were going to award another 75. None of those have been awarded.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in Washington, we passed recreational in 2012. We didn't even open up any stores until the end, December, I believe, of 2014 was when the very first store opened up in Seattle.
Is this because of, and I don't mean to cut you off, it just sounds like the difference between when the legislature's on board versus when the people say we want it and the legislature's like, we don't care. And so with Seattle, well, not just Seattle, of course, all of Washington State, wasn't this a ballot initiative that passed? And then you directed the legislature to do something? In Illinois, it was completely backwards. The legislature, we can't vote. And so it has to come from the legislature. And the legislature and J.B. Pritzker as the governor put it on the agenda and said, we're going to do this. And it's such unity of interest in the Illinois legislature, just like 70% Democrat or something, that it got through. And so that's why it moved so quick. We're going to see something, I believe, similar to what happened in Washington State in South Dakota. It appears that they have litigation already that the sheriffs are bringing against the law that passed in South Dakota, plus the governor. And so the administration that's involved sounded very, very unimpressed. And so when the state's not on board at that state level, you can get those long delays and all this chicanery that sounds like came out of Washington State.
Well, I'm sure in South Dakota, all they care about is their fracking money anyway. So,
Washington too, I think they took their time slowly trying to figure out how to kill medical. It wasn't just not so much the process itself, but eventually they had legislation, SB 5052 being the one that was a nail in the coffin. There's only so many medical providers. There's only I think 2 markets that I know of, and it used to be like you said, 3,000 providers across the state. I used to travel the state as a technician. I could go anywhere in any county with my prescription, and it was glorious. It was, you walk into a store and there's so many strains and smells and products.
Wait. Explain the mythical past, because I hate how people always say back in my day, but it's a legit thing considering I have to if I want to buy weed in Illinois and not grow my own as a medical card holder, I do need to go and you show your card, you get in, it's completely sealed. You're not allowed to inspect. You're not allowed to smell. You can barely look at it. You're not allowed to touch it. It goes into a bag. Then you can get the bag after you've paid them. And so it's just not a great user experience. Discuss the user experience of medical cannabis in Washington State.
Man.
There was a golden era in Washington where if you were a medical patient, it was about the freest you ever had for access to cannabis and, your right to partake in it. Things are completely different now in the recreational stores where everything's all sealed up. But there was dispensaries. There was dispensaries that were, grand, beautiful, palaces, and there was the the back of the barber shop dispensaries as
Bodega.
well.
The bodega.
And all of them had something to offer, and it was amazing. And there was
What
a
about
lot
the cost
of
of entry? 'Cause then,
economic distribution throughout the community.
when I talk to people about getting into the industry and I start explaining to them how expensive it can be to open a dispensary in a highly regulated or a limited market state, and they're just like, what? What was your cost of getting into the game and having a dispensary in the medical marijuana market in Washington State?
They're really, your medical card was maybe $200 at the most. And, if you wanted to get a brick and mortar dispensary, whatever you could secure your lease for. And then you just got a business license from whatever city you're in, you're free to open up. Now it's completely different. You can't open up unless you jump through all the hoops of the Liquor and Cannabis Board here in Washington.
Right. You get a stack of regs this thick, and that's how you operate. And here's your security plan, and here's your seed and sale tracking. Here's your inventory management. Here's your cash handling plan. And these applications, they get very, very complex. Like there'll be 1,000 pages. I mean, sometimes they have page limits that are less. The round from Fresno for dispensing that just happened was a 200-page application, but still a 200-page application for a dispensary operation is a lot,
Yeah.
Back then it was just a seed though. It was that was your entry. Because Aaron, you said you were a provider, right? So did you take your wares, your product to dispensaries and sell? Because that gave you a chance to have an income.
Well, I didn't. I was pretty low key with, our operation. Really, we would just set up at the medical farmers markets. So the Tacoma markets.
So you're a grower.
He's amazed by that.
You're a grower, and you go to a farmer's market. You have a table and an awning and just weed.
So much weed.
Yep. Jars and medicine, and it was, it was wonderful. It was a community of medical providers and patients, and we all, we competed with each other, but we also collaborated, and we helped each other out when we needed to, and it was really, important to the people who were in it for the right reasons and the people who stuck around. The patient was the most important. So if I didn't have something that I knew a patient would be better for them, like a strain or a capsule or whatever, if I didn't happen to have that at that time, I would make sure that I sent them to the right place, because that was just the priority, making sure that people got their medicine. And like I said, now it's completely different. You go into a recreational store here in Washington, they cannot talk to you about your medical conditions unless they have a medical authorization, and that's really few and far between here, because really there's not hardly any medical patients to go around anymore, just because it's just so convenient for everybody to go to these recreational stores and deal with it that way.
But the legislatures, they've tried very hard to kill the medical term, the medical reference. Being that there's no, like our law, the legislation itself, the fact that medical is tested to a higher level when they all should be tested to the same level, because it's still a consumable, a human consumable thing.
So, wait a minute. What are you talking about, Miggy? Now, Aaron, as a producer, what type of testing and compliance did your plants have to undergo?
Are you talking about as a medical grower?
Right. Back in the day when you were a medical grower.
None at all. That was really on the honor system. And, there were definitely commercial growers who were, putting stuff on their flowers that didn't need to be there. And, that definitely happened. But, you learn to not deal with those people. And that's really all you could do. But now there's no way to know at all, and they're really, the testing is a joke. So even the licensed producers in recreational in Washington, they'll tell you it's a joke. They get to pick whatever bud they want, and that's what they send in. It could be from any strain, and they just label it whatever they want, and they just send it into the lab, the testing company. Also, here in Washington, one of these certified labs just last week got shut down for falsifying their test results, which they all do and have been doing. Even back when medical was around, they were still.
Well, think about it. Like, have you seen just grotesque THC numbers come back from tests?
Oh my goodness, 37%.
Yes.
It's
yes.
just
really.
I mean, I've seen it, but I don't believe it.
I'm in your boat. I'm like, no, I just don't think it gets to be physically possible for the plant to get to that level of cannabinoids. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but I would like to see the seed to sale to testing of that 37% strain just to watch it.
Yeah.
The lack of standardization, the testing itself is something that we're going to have to achieve later on. Like right now, we just got to make it so people don't go to jail. Like let's just make it so.
Well, we have to be vigilant about the industry itself. You see, this industry didn't have to be how it is currently in Washington State, where it's very, very difficult to get into and out of. And you can get in. I'm assuming that there's licenses for sale because it's a grind, and so some people want to exit businesses. But what's your entry into a Washington market? It has to be buying a license. What are they going for, Aaron? Do you know what the prices are?
Well, it depends. Right now in Washington, so the way they did it, they limited the retail licenses. They had a lottery for those, but the producer processor licenses, they put no limit on except for the overall canopy space for the entire state. So they licensed thousands of growers originally, and then only a few retailers for them all to sell to, which really isn't even fair to the producers when you think about it, because the law states that there should be 556 customers for these people to sell to, and the state still hasn't even opened up all of the stores that they're supposed to have for these thousands of producer processors to sell to. So it's an extremely competitive market over there. So depending on which company you're talking about, that's going to depend on the value of the license over there on the producer processor side. On the retail side, it's really tied to what jurisdiction the retail licenses are locked into. A Seattle retail license is going to go for millions of dollars, probably, $2 to $3 million just for the license alone, let alone, the business attached to it.
Right.
And then in other parts of the state, it's going to go down from there.
So you have to get in through the purchase option. And then it seems like even if you do get in through the purchase option, man, trying to be like an upstart retailer there. I'm sorry, upstart cultivator is the only way you can go. And it would just be, I don't even know if you'd be able to break into the market with so few people that are out there to buy your stuff.
It's extremely competitive. And unfortunately, here in Washington, you don't allow vertical integration with growers and retailers, but it's still happening. So a lot of the retailers and growers have these under the table deals, or really, it's the same person who owns both of them anyway.
Hey,
but so they're really just doing business with themselves, and that. If you're a producer, you're a small producer just starting out, and you don't have that kind of relationship with any retailers, you're really in trouble.
Man, so like we just can't rely on our YouTube channel and be like, hey, Miggy, can we get like a grower license out there? And then just be like, hey, man, go find our products at a store near you.
That'd be great. But we had Kush Kush on. Aaron, do you know Kush Kush up in up north in Washington? But Kush Kush, he's an out-of-stater. And, a lot of winning growers were legacy growers, right? Local Roots, Mad Mark. These brands, people were able to get picked up, and they didn't go out of business right away. They had a chance to there, but to get that license and to start off, this is the problem with the whole Washington market is we don't know who's what when you're buying a brand. Like white label's a thing. Like we can go out and get our own brand, but I mean, you have to inspect the grow. Consistency is not going to be a thing unless you are the grower. And at that point, that's why the medical market was so good. There were so many growers. Quality prevailed. It was always an option. I wasn't obligated to 1 ounce. I would buy a quarter here, quarter there, and the best quarter wins. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, we should be peddling our own quarters eventually. Nice.
Oh yeah, I'm all about it. But the Washington market back in the day was the purest of capitalist American Kana. I mean, like it gave everybody a chance. There was clones for sale in some of these markets. I could have took that clone.
We have to have clones for sale. Some strains are specifically clones.
We don't, not in our 502 recreational market though. That's what I'm saying.
But the genetics are clone only, and so they have to be clones.
Yeah. But I could have took that clone, grow it, split it with me and the grow, and took it back to the dispensary and sold some. Would have gave me a chance to have some extra income. It was the great equalizer, but people with dollar signs in their eyes came and everybody up. Yep. That's it.
Do you think they do this for the other industries? Do you think these greedy motherfuckers, they come in, they're like, listen, I'm going to tell you how we need to do big pork. I'm going to tell you how we need to do big beef. I mean, and then for some reason, they all kind of turn out to be these caricatures of just grinding out everything they can to make as much profit in the next 3 months and say whatever they need to say to justify it.
Well, I mean, they probably did. There's stories of abuse, Yeah. I mean, you see like the old Western movies about how the ranchers, the small time ranchers got pushed out of business and all that stuff. But you would think by, 2012 or 2015, whenever, or I guess 2014, when they actually started issuing out these licenses, you think we would have learned better by then,
The great equalizer, I got no word for that. Equalizer, that'd be it. But like the opposite of that. Because
hey, you know what we missed about 3 minutes ago, though?
Oh, that's
I want to take one of these bumps. Yeah.
Do it.
No.
Yes, it is. I would do mine now, but I'm at work, so I'll be doing it in about an hour.
Working for the weekends, are you? Trying to get it?
I'm just a lazy stoner who works on electronics and does shit. That's all. But the thing is, like back in Washington's early days, everybody had a chance. They screwed us, but what I'm trying to get at is the repression with the minority community and how it's always been a tool to control people, to subjugate, and through that, it's through paperwork. That's how it's not like we can't be blatant racist.
That's how they caught Capone.
But I'm just saying, like, we can't be blatant racist, right? We can't create a law that says, all right, we're going to hurt all the people who are hurt by this bad law. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to focus on poor neighborhoods. No, you can't write a law because this is America. And now I can't say black, brown, yellow in the law. I can't designate this law for a certain color because that's racist. But the shit beforehand was racist.
So it's also unconstitutional. It violates
exactly
due process, equal protection. But that's one of the reasons why Illinois drafted it in such a way. And so, we had Queen on from the Drug Policy Alliance last week, and you could look at the data because the data's out there. The arrest data set is out there, and it's growing by the day. People get arrested for marijuana every day in this country, and you could see, based on the demographic data as to the things that was filled out when that person was arrested, who's getting arrested. And it kind of speaks for itself. And so when you have these social equity license types where you say, well, if you were arrested for this, then we know base rate, you got a 75% chance of being black or brown, and because of that, that's how they've tried to get around the unconstitutional saying black, brown, the Ohio law was the worst one, where it just said semicolon and listed every race and then a parenthesis about their race. So it'd be like Hispanic, parenthesis Mexicans, Asian parenthesis, and it got struck down. You're like, oh my gosh, it was like literally everything except for white was defined as like not an inferior race, but it was one of the more hilariously bad social equity legislative drafts that I had seen.
Aaron, what do you think would be good social equity for, like, we got like 20 freaking review boards here in Washington State all coming together now, like everybody wants to care about social equity now. What do you think would help social equity? Like, how can we implement it here in Washington without the verbiage of black, white, brown, blah, blah?
So you have to go with disparate impact, right? The whatever communities were disproportionately impacted by basically the war on drugs, and it's just really semantics, but because of was the I-1000 here in Washington, we really can't do anything to to change the current makeup of things racially, because it's going to be a racist law to correct a racist system. So,
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, honestly, the real way to fix it would put it back the way it was. Put it back the way this open market, but now we have money involved, and people with money don't want to lose their money. So how do we get around this, right? We open more licenses. We enable people from, like you and people from the game, people who actually suffered and had a position should have a seat at the table now. I think, in my opinion, those are those who suffered through the medical transition.
You could do the social equity round. Like I said, if we know the data, and so like if you were arrested or if you live in a disproportionately impacted area, you're going to accomplish that goal. And then if you require that ownership percentage to get the quote unquote points for the social equity, like they did in Illinois, where it's 51% ownership has to qualify for one of these social equity things, you will get them injected into the licenses. You may need to do a new license round that allows that. But if you put it into the calculus where like 20% of your score to be eligible to be placed into this lottery requires that, there was only really social equity applicants in Illinois that, it was like 90%, 10% of the people thought they didn't need it. But, only the social equity, and then only the social equity veterans won. So like, that's how crazy the cannabis demand would be if you guys had a new license round.
Well, we open up, say, add another 100 license, right?
No, and why would you do another 100? I mean, you're talking about 540 stores for the entire, how many million people live in Washington State?
Well, even processors.
Like 7.5, I believe.
500 shops. Can you imagine there's 500 liquor stores or 500 coffee shops throughout the entire state?
But just to help with the equity part, though, they should, since you can't signify color, you can signify people of legacy industry. Because there's plenty of people at the time of color and whatnot that were active.
They usually got arrested. And so, like, if they have that arrest, and then
I'm sorry. Are you saying that's 500 is too much or too little?
I'm saying 500 is way too little. Like, if you were going to do another license round, like do another couple hundred social equity dispensaries, and then get rid of and then of course, like separate I don't understand I understand why you separate the licenses, but I don't understand why you completely separate the licenses so you can't grow in retail. I don't get that.
I get it. And I think it, because of the way they've allowed these, basically millionaires to monopolize the market, it's actually probably a good thing for Washington, because, if there was complete vertical integration right now, these retailers who are, completely dominating everything, they would control all of the growth side as well. And, right now they still dominate it. They were basically, kingmakers. Anybody, if you have a retail store that's doing, maybe $600,000-$700,000 in revenue a month, you have you have the power to change the life of a grower. You know, the owner of one of these companies, you can change their whole year just by, you know, taking them on and putting them on your shelves.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of power, pricing power. I mean, they could like ruin a company. I mean, but then that's why you always have to be careful when you're in business that you don't want to have what they call an anchor tenant or an anchor client, like in the law practice or something. So like if I'm looking at my role of clients, and if one of my clients is responsible for more than 30, 40, 50% of my business, I want to be like, better not be asking that client for more work right now. Probably need to diversify, simply because like you never know when that's just going to be turned off.
And that's the point here in Washington. These people who are dominating the market, monopolizing it, they're exercising undue influence over the regulators in order to maintain the position that they have. So, you know, basically they see us coming, and instead of, like you're saying, adding 200 more licenses, they're saying, no, don't do any harm, do no harm, you know, make sure, you know, whatever we do, we don't want to hurt what's already happening. So let's just take these 30 licenses that were never given out, and we'll put those towards social equity. So that's going to be, there's going to be like 34 licenses that were either taken back from people who, you know, had violations.
How can they apply for them then? If these licenses have already been like revoked, or how do they reassign these 34 licenses?
So they're just sitting in a pool within the LCB's, you know, computer bank or whatever. You know, they don't.
So they could have another application round of 34.
That's what they were planning on doing for these social equity licenses, and
that'll be big. I mean, that'll get like a lot of demand for 34 licenses in the whole state. I mean, that's what they call a limited market opportunity. So these types of licenses, if the application, it might be tens of thousands of dollars in the entire undertaking. You're probably going to want a budget, definitely in the millions. I mean, because like it depends on where the real estate is, but depends on how much you want to like lean on that real estate, you know, because that one can really drive the cost of opening up. But yeah, that'd be interesting. Hopefully they have one. That'd be great for you guys to have a round.
I mean, that's the plan, but you know, we thought 34 was, you know, that should have just been for the city of Seattle alone.
Yes, yeah.
You know,
we could talk about the Detroit legacy license. We're helping some people in Detroit over the course of the next spring. They're going to be popping off 75 retail outlets. And so you're talking about Detroit, 75 retail outlets, whole state of Washington, 34 more. Come on. That's silly.
Yeah.
Washington has the legislatures, and they have a tendency to just be able to shoot themselves in the foot, and Washingtonians in the cannabis industry. Aaron, I don't know if you attended the home grow testimonies in the beginning, but there was one cat, the legacy guy who sells seeds. I think his name is Juice or whatever, but came out against home grow. And I'm thinking, if you're part of the cannabis industry, wouldn't it behoove you to have home grow? Because it only expands the market. It expands everything. It doesn't mean, I mean, there's homebrew. I buy my beer still, and I'll still buy my weed.
Yeah. Do you brew your own beer?
Exactly.
No one's going to, that's not going to make a difference. Nobody's going to spend all the time and money and effort it takes to grow just to grow 4 plants. It's just,
seriously,
it's not going to move the dial.
Yeah. I mean, like, think about that. I mean, if you're trying to, well, I mean, I'm glad that they have the opportunity. I am. Safe access to medicine. Don't get me wrong. And so if you need to be doing that, and you need to have a garden so that you could be pulling down some ounces every month, do it. But if you're going to be a hobbyist and then you're just doing it because you like to, I could see people after a year, 2 years, that grow tent's just collecting dust, just like the treadmill, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so we definitely support it. We believe everybody should have the right to do it, but don't put it forth as something that's, going to grant greater inclusion for the market and allow access for minorities into the economic opportunities being created. It's not. I don't.
No.
It's not even going to save you money, really. At all.
The cash flows are being taken. There's everybody's the people that have the license are thrilled with taking the cash flow, but they really aren't allowing those cash flow opportunities for new participants. let alone new social. Because like there's not such a thing as social equity in Washington State. Are we right on that?
No.
Well, they're working on it. They're working on it.
Do you have any faith in them, dude? Same.
I don't know. I'm just gonna, we're just gonna wait and see what happens with that, and hope for the best. We did not support the legislation, but it passed anyway, and so like I said, we're just gonna hope for the best and do what we can to contribute and make sure that it's the best it can be.
What are the bills? I'll get my people on it. And what's the name of the law that passed?
2870 was the cannabis social equity bill that passed, and basically it just created a social equity task force that has the authority to make a recommendation to the Liquor and Cannabis Board. So
it's not really a bill that...
hopefully they take that recommendation whenever it comes.
That was an interesting Zoom call. Did you see the? You were part of the conference when they called out that one guy who was part of the arrest of one of the. He spoke up. There was quite a little argument going on about. I think it was from the Black Excellence group about how there's a Hispanic dude that's on the board, that's on a task force.
Oh yeah, he was actually. The deputy mayor of Seattle, maybe 10, 15 years ago. I guess it was like about 10 years ago, right when they were really doing the major crackdown on the dispensaries in Seattle. And, one of our other members, Peter Manning, who's also my co-plaintiff in the federal lawsuit, he dealt with him personally, and this guy basically told him that this is where we're getting calls at the black-owned dispensaries from the public, so that's where the police are going. But now we see that these white-owned retail stores, they're not being harassed by the police or DEA or anybody. And people are still, I believe the cannabis still smells the same. So why aren't they getting these phone calls and acting on it?
There's definitely been some prejudices laid out in the enforcement of. It's been a long, weird ride in Washington.
So how many of the retail licenses, the 500 retail licenses in Washington State, are minority owned?
I know of 2 retail stores in the state that are black owned, over 51% black owned. As far as the rest of the breakdown goes, it's hard to say because the information that the Liquor and Cannabis Board is giving us is it's incorrect. It's not transparent, and it changes. So. We've been asking them for almost 2 years now for the list of black-owned stores. The list that they're counting this percentage of black-owned stores. Like, what are the names of these stores so we can verify this? They won't give it to us. They say, "Oh, we'll do a public information request." You do a public information request. They either stall you and tell you they'll get you the rest of your information sometime in 2022, or they give you this just huge information dump of like all these random emails and all this just crap that you're supposed to sift through and try to sort out. So they're obstructing, and it's something that they're good at,
Yeah, fun fact, the Washington State LCB settled a lawsuit with a guy who was about to sue them for secret meetings that they were holding, and they settled. So if you want to earn $100,000 or some odd $1,000, sue the Washington State.
$192,000.
Hey, how much of that went to a nice?
Because they did not want to disclose all the secret meetings that they were having prior to passing recreational.
A nice litigation attorney helped, and hopefully he was paid from that $192,000.
No, he did it pro se.
It was all him.
Yeah.
Wow, that must be nice to like
Yeah,
be in a
agreed not to
position.
sue him again for 10 years or something.
Yeah. Maybe one day after I've lawed it up enough, I'd be like, I'll just do that pro se. I have enough. Help you out.
Aaron, can you tell us about your lawsuit though?
Yeah, so we filed it back in March, and basically we're fighting for inclusion. We're alleging that the state of Washington is operating an illicit, basically an illicit drug dealing scheme, and they're doing it in a discriminatory manner, and violating our constitutional and civil rights. This is not something we wanted to do at all, but we feel like we exhausted every other alternative, and that's what we came to. They've we named the state of Washington as well as the Department of Justice in the lawsuit, basically stating that the Department of Justice is allowing the state of Washington to operate this illicit scheme and giving them federal dollars to do so. And so basically, we're fighting that. We fought off a couple of motions to dismiss on the side of the state and the DOJ, and we believe we'll be getting a court date pretty soon here.
Well, that's great. Making it through a motion to dismiss is always a very exciting time.
We've had 4 motions to dismiss now.
Look at that. So you could see how this can make it cost prohibitive when you are trying to litigate for your rights, unless you can find somebody that's got a lot of money and he's just going to like bankroll it because he can, or she, or a firm. But that's a lot of briefing. That was a lot of writing, a lot of responding, a lot of time that it took to bring those arguments in front of that judge so that you could prevail on that. And now you might get into some discovery and some motion practice, where things can get even way more expensive. Like discovery can go on for years.
Yeah, I mean, we've been lucky to have somebody helping us who's just really amazing legal mind, but at the same time we're doing this pro se for now. We're hoping when we do get a court date and the judge orders discovery that we will be able to get a larger law firm to step in and help us with the discovery process, because we know that there's a ton of corruption going on in the state of Washington. We know it. We just need to be able to get into the records to be able to get the evidence. But once that happens, that's going to blow the lid off of this whole situation here in Washington.
How many industries out there have caps, license caps? Like, are there gun caps?
Alcohol.
Are there, yeah, I guess so. Alcohol
like
caps.
liquor, but very often it's not behind the state. Like the state of Illinois or the state of Washington very often doesn't say, you know what, our 4,000 bars are enough. We should just have a limit on the number of bars. That's set by the municipality. And then if you want to if they want to open up another bar in their city, maybe their city's grown, they can get a liquor license, but that's handled at a municipal aspect. So yeah.
I mean, that's one way we should be treated more. I mean, if anything, I'll give 1 or 2 things that I've ever to, like, you've given employee benefits, you created the structure for people to have rights. But other than that, they fucked up so much shit when transitioning, period. Oregon did it right because medical at the time, it was like a turnkey. You went from medical to recreational. But Washington, so many people got hurt in transition, legacy people. people who did have licenses, but then failed at the moratoriums and whatnot. It was just a shit show of dreams.
Yeah, people complained about what was going on in Oregon because they said it was so competitive out down there. But isn't that what capitalism is supposed to be? Isn't that what America is supposed to be about? That may the best man win. You compete, and you offer, the person who offers the best service and product to the customer is the person who's gonna, do the best in the industry. What's wrong with that? Here in Washington, they basically just provided these people with these little fiefdoms where they have a captive audience, and unless you want to go to some other town to buy your cannabis or break the law now, you're forced to go to these places.
Yep. Yeah, it's not a good transition, I guess. But what else so besides the license cap, is there anything else that they can do, do you think, to enable it?
At this point, it's tough. You've got this exploitative situation that's really entrenched already. So unless you're going to talk about taking away licenses from the people who are already monopolizing the situation, and I don't think anybody really wants to do that. So really, that's the only answer, is to add additional licenses. Other than that, you're just going to get these, situations of tokenism and further exploitation where you have Sean Kemp opening up a store supposedly opening up a store in Seattle and saying it's the first Black-owned store in the city. But then you find out that he actually only owns 5% of the store, and really he's just the face for these people who are already millionaires from
advertising
exploiting the situation in the first place.
They've
And it's fine that he has a licensing deal, but don't try to promote it as the first Black-owned store when you're really just benefit. That was just such an ugly move. They were really trying to manipulate the public and exploit the situation that exists because of discrimination.
Yeah. Here's this industry of inequality. Let's just prop this guy up and say, look, we're almost there. I mean, it's just like racist saying, yo, you had Obama, so we're good.
We're good. You know what I really like? My cash flows. You're not going to get in the way of my cash flows, are you? I couldn't agree to that. Let me just take some of my cash flows and write a check to this politician. There you go. Yeah, I mean, I could just see that literally being what's going on.
Yeah.
Aaron, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can we go to find and follow what you guys got going on at Black Excellence in Cannabis?
You can check us out at blackexcellence.com or at Black Excellence, the group on Facebook, or Black Excellence in Cannabis on Instagram. Any of those things, or just Black Excellence in Cannabis at gmail.com if you want to send us an email.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on again, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you like and subscribe to keep up with all cannabis legalization news. We will see you on Wednesday.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Aaron.